So today I'm going to be talking about a diet and primarily meat, eating meat, because there's seemingly an explosion of meat-based diets, carnivore diet, keto, and there's just, it's on the rise, getting popular. And a lot of friends, family, and people in my life know that I'm plant-based. I don't call myself vegan anymore. I'm not with the labels, but I just don't eat animals. And because people know that I don't eat animals, they've been asking me about what I thought about this rise in meat-based diets. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And okay, my intention is once again to raise the collective vibration and to share the truth, not my opinion. If truth triggers you, you're going to have a rough ride. I just want to make sure, that's why I don't post very often. I like to make sure that I know what I'm talking about and that I'm not giving messages in my ego. And that's what a lot of people in spiritual narcissism, there's a line where you're giving people truth and people don't check themselves when they go past that line, and it's more of an opinion, a biased opinion that they're giving you. So that said, I'm just going to talk about the meat consumption. And, this is why I'm not, I could be a lot bigger and more popular if I sold out and just went with a team. I am unattached. So I'm not team vegan. I'm not team carnivore crew. I'm just going to talk truth. And, maybe some vegans might not like what I have to say, but I understand things. I understand the vegan mindset, and I understand the compassion. However, I don't believe that it's good to make people uncomfortable with their choices, and I don't believe in condemning meat eating. I don't feel that it's my place to do that. It's my place to worry about myself and my own journey, and all I can do is share my truth and share with people why I am plant-based. But to condemn meat eating, I don't think meat eating is wrong. I think that some people are on that vibration where they eat meat and they feel that they want to eat meat, and that's okay. That's your choice to eat meat. I don't believe eating meat is a bad thing. Now, the vegan mindset, I understand and I relate and I agree that there is an exploitation of animals and animal suffering. That's why they want everybody to stop eating meat, and I get that. However, when you go deep into spiritual channeling, you understand that everybody's on a different path, and sometimes they don't care. They don't care what you're saying. They're not on the vibration to care because they're on a different path, life path and journey. So they don't hear what you're saying. They're irritated by it. So just being angry about that and wanting people to see things the way you see things, that might not be the best way. And disseminating truth can be done a different way than such a in-your-face call to action that makes people uncomfortable, and I know that a lot of vegans will agree with me or disagree with me because of that, because they're concerned about the animals as am I. And there is a terrible treatment of animals that they're speaking to, and I get that. But I'm not really about, strongly pushing my veganism on other people when they're not even ready for that. And I understand why they're just not on that path. So, I believe there's a different way to disseminate truth, even to the people who they don't care about animals or whatever. There's just a way that it can be done without being in your face. However, now here comes the stuff. However, I think the promotion of meat eating is not good. I think the promotion of meat eating it's not divinely inspired, even if, and you're having a lot of people, some of them so-called spiritual people, even going there and telling people to eat meat. telling you straight up, and I might reference some Hermetic principles. I'm going to be referencing from the Kabbalah, why that is just not wise. And anyone telling anybody to eat more meat, I'm telling you right now, that is not coming from the light. That's not coming from God. That's not coming from source. It's coming from their lower nature. And, anyone telling you to eat more meat is serving their lower nature. And it's not a divinely inspired message. I'm going to break it down as to why. What is the truth? And I'll share my journey. And then I'm going to talk about some of these diets, the meat diets, and why I don't think it's wrong to eat meat. I just want everyone to know what is true. And then you do what you feel is best for you and your household, as long as you know the truth. So I went down I'm not vegan. I don't eat animals. I went down my journey. It was around the time I was having a spiritual awakening. I was having a rough time. I was breaking programs. I was breaking the religious program. I was breaking all these programs, and my world was unraveling because I was having a spiritual breakthrough, and I was getting wiser. I was getting spiritually more powerful, but things were falling apart at the seams. Everything that I thought was true was a lie. Everything was unraveling, and I was breaking programs, and it was a lot to deal with. During that same time, I stopped enjoying meat just naturally. And I didn't like that because I wanted to eat and enjoy my food. And I remember days where I'd be eating, say a chicken sandwich, and I'm chewing slower and slower, and I'm just getting in my own head, and I'm not enjoying the food. And I was wondering why. Like, why am I not enjoying the food? What's going on? And so I started to go down the rabbit hole of research, and my eyes started opening, and I was like, wow. And not fanatical going down a vegan path, just really researching. And my mind started to expand, and I started to look at things different. Then I watched some documentaries, what the hell? And I was like, boom, that's it. And then I started with a vegan challenge, a 7-day vegan challenge. And it has so far been about 9 years. So I'm still on that challenge, no going back. So here's the truth about meat, and I once again, I'm not trying to disturb anybody. If you don't want to hear this, log off, catch the next video, but I'm just going to offer the truth. So the truth is that some of these carnivore diets work, in the sense that working is relative, that people experience weight loss, muscle mass, muscle growth, and energy level spikes. However, is there an alternative to produce the same results than eating meat? Probably. If, people were to take the time to really research and try other things, try other sources of protein, can the same results be achieved? Probably. There's many ways to skin a cat, so you can't just say, oh, meat. That's the first of all. Second of all, people are not explaining that these carnivore or meat-based diets are not good for the long term. They have helped people even recover from ailments, gastrointestinal problems. There was a Dr. Stephen Gundry, that he doesn't eat meat, and he doesn't advocate eating meat, but he put a vegan on a 30-day meat diet, and his health improved dramatically. Hey, this is just the truth. People who are vegan don't want to say these things, but nothing threatens me. This is just the truth. However, there is a huge but to that. That same doctor does not advocate eating meat for the long term, and can also said that there are no long-term examples or studies proving meat consumption to be good 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, because they're all dead. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. Just kidding. There's no long-term living examples of meat-based diets being good for the long term. In fact, a lot of these carnivore diets are not good for the long term. They have short-term positive effects for various reasons. And so they're good for, when people are eating animals with intention and purpose, karmically, I see that on a different vibration, a completely different level when people are trying to do something specific, with eating animals and, in a mind state of gratitude and not gluttony. It's very purposeful. I see that karmically, I see that on a completely different level than the meathead moron, chewing meat in front of vegans and advocating that everybody eat meat just to eat meat. That's a different frequency altogether. And I don't ride with that. But people eating meat purposefully, yeah. But again, long term, having a high meat diet is not good. And there are studies backing that up, that people who have heavy meat diets are dying younger and dying with lots of diseases and ailments at a higher rate than people who don't have meat diets. And that is the facts. So all in all, these diets that are being pumped out are being very dishonest. They're being very dishonest, and they're not explaining to people that these diets are not good for the long term. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 30 days. Okay. To do something specific. Okay. 20 years of a high meat diet is not good.
If I had only heard some headlines about you, I would have thought, oh, red meat, I'll get after it, because I eat a ton of red meat and think I'm doing healthy things. So you don't eat a lot of meat. Why not?
So we found that there was a molecule, a sugar molecule, on the wall of pig blood vessels that's totally different from the sugar molecule that's in ours. But it differs by only one, actually, atom. And it's called Nu5GC in pigs, cows, and lambs. And we carry what's called Nu5AC. And I have nothing against red meat. But if you look statistically, the red meat eaters do have significantly more coronary artery disease and significantly more cancer. Now, why cancer? Well, it turns out that cancer tumors in humans use Nu5GC to shield themselves from detection by the immune system. The problem is we don't manufacture Nu5GC, nor can a cancer cell, which means they acquired it from external sources, namely beef, lamb, and pork. Now, fish doesn't carry it. They have the same molecule that we do, and chicken have the same molecule that we do. So I urge people, if they're going to eat animal protein, and I do, to use wild shellfish or wild fish as their main source of animal protein. Do I eat meat? Yeah, do I eat beef? I do. But I get grass-fed and grass-finished beef, and I use it as a treat, not as a mainstay of my diet.
Talk to me about how animal meats end up, because you don't eat hardly any. How does lectin find its way into animal meat?
We raise animals with antibiotics, and this was discovered by accident years ago when they were thinking that antibiotics might be needed for crowded conditions of stockyard animals. But the researcher found out that by giving antibiotics to these animals, they grew faster and got fatter much quicker than the animals who didn't get the antibiotics. So it was approved by the Department of Agriculture and the FDA to give antibiotics to animals for the purpose of growth. What we didn't know is that those residual antibiotics are incorporated into the meat of the beef, the chicken, the pork, you name it. And so we actually, every time we ingest factory-raised meats or even farm-raised fish, ingest microdoses of antibiotics. Microdoses of antibiotics are incredibly effective at killing off your microbiome. So, in the last 40 years, we've had this, incredible, the worst storm that could possibly happen for our microbiome and for our leaky gut. Particularly, there's a woman psychologist in LA that I talk about in the book who had horrible lupus. And so we're going through the list. I said, well, something's getting into you. And we get to pasture-raised chicken. And I said, now you're eating pasture-raised chicken. She said, oh yeah, I eat organic free-range chicken all the time. It's my go-to food. I said, free-range chicken? And she said, yeah, organic free-range. I said, well, the federal government in 2007 passed a law that says you can keep 100,000 chickens in a warehouse, feed them organic corn and soybeans, and not let them out of the warehouse except open a door for 5 minutes every 24 hours, and the chicken has the potential to go outside. And that is the current government definition of organic free-range chicken.
Wow.
So she was eating the lectins of soybeans and corn in the chicken that she was eating. And in my upcoming book, The Longevity Paradox, if you look at societies of the blue zones, the longest living people on Earth, the common factor that they all have in their diet, they have very diverse diets. There's no universal diet that these people follow. And I was a professor at one of the blue zones, Loma Linda, for most of my life. The thing that separates or unites all of those various diets is they eat very little animal protein.
So what we're going to do now is we're not going to be in opinion zone. We're going to talk about some truth and facts about meat. And there's a lot of things that, get shut down because we live in a meat-loving culture that does not want to hear some of these real things. And one of the real things is that, there are real health concerns with a lot of meat consumption that is not being talked about and not being mainstreamed because it's being scuttled. But there is an issue with eating a lot of meat. The meat decomposes in our body and sits there for months and months and puts us at risk for various diseases, including cancers. This is the truth. We like to tell ourselves that we are carnivores, but we're not. We're omnivores who eat some meat sometimes, but we didn't eat meat to the degree that we're eating now. And it is causing a lot of health problems and puts us at risk to a number of different ailments and diseases. There is an environmental issue with our societal overconsumption of meat. There are a lot of environmental concerns and, farms keeping up with the demand of this meat consumption that is really freakishly abnormal, but no one wants to pause and reflect about that. There is a energetic consequence of eating dead animal low prana food versus high prana food, and eating dead animals that live the life of trauma and what that does to us energetically. Nobody's going to talk about this stuff. The celebrity doctors don't know what any of this is, but they don't talk about this stuff, and so you're not going to be told this truth. There is a direct connection with everything you do. Everything is energy, frequency, vibration. And when you're eating dead animals who lived in trauma, that trauma is in their cells and you are ingesting that. That is real talk. That is not being discussed. People just can tell you to eat more meat. No divine wisdom in there telling you to do that. And finally, the state of the meat. Eating meat in and of itself, we can talk about that. But the state of the meat in the United States is horrendous. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to hit all these points. So we'll talk about everything. By the end of the video, I will have covered everything. So let's start with the state of the meat. The state of the meat, first of all, is a problem. So anyone telling you to eat more meat is out of their mind. When you understand that the meat that we have access to, the most of the meat in the supermarkets right now, the state of the meat is worse than it's ever been. They're pumping the animals with hormones, steroids, antibiotics. A lot of the animals are driven insane. Their treatment is horrendous. There's a lot of diseased animals that they're just shooting up with antibiotics, and just, there's just this overconsumption of meat culturally that farms are feeding into, and the meat is horrible, and these animals are sick and living in bad conditions, and we eat that, and we connect with that, and that is a problem. That's why there's so much heart disease and cancer that come from a lot of meat consumption that they won't tell you. But it's a lot of sicknesses are directly linked to meat consumption, especially the processed food, bacon and hot dogs and sausages and all the processed meat. Processed anything is not good, but especially meat, it's bad. And the steak, the heart, it's not good. So anyone telling you to eat more is not giving you a wise message coming from God, coming from source. If they were being honest, they would just let you know that they're telling you to do what they would like you to do. Doesn't mean that it's the truth. Everything is energy, frequency, vibration, and we are all fields of energy, and we influence each other to do high frequency things and low frequency things. You ever have like a friend who's a high vibrational energy, and that might be the friend to invite you on a hike, to the gym, go for a walk, just high vibing. And you have low vibe friends, people who are in a lower frequency that'll invite you to the bar. Come on, have another drink. When you are doing something high vibe, oh, come on, you can do that tomorrow. We influence each other. And when people are advocates of meat, they do it for themselves, that's fine. But when people are trying to convince you to eat more meat, it's because that's the frequency they're on. And that's the vibration they're on. And they just want you to be down there too, on that lower frequency of gorging out on meat. And that's just the honest truth, whether they realize it or not. Because with most people, it's reflexive. A lot of people are not even conscious of what they're doing or why. But if they were openly conscious with what their motivation is behind convincing people to do things, it's because they've convinced themselves that this is their truth and it is good for everybody, but it's really recruiting you to a lower frequency because it's not a high vibe activity, eating meat. Not only is that the state of the meat right now code red, they're not telling you. We can't trust the powers that be to be honest with us. They're not telling us. I mean, there's a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. Vegetables too. The chemicals that they're spraying them with. A lot of things are in danger. A lot of food is, in danger, but more so with meat. You have a lot of people ready to make quick arguments. People are really annoying when they want to be in the lower frequency and they want to shoot down, plant-based initiatives. Well, what about the plants? And notice how everybody has a vegan friend. Then I'm going to use me because I'm too fit and strong. They don't use me as their vegan friend. But, everybody has a friend that, I don't know, he got sick and died, and his last dying word was, "It's because I went vegan." And people are ridiculous when they want to stay on a low frequency. But anyway, not only is the state of the meat not good, it is also unnatural the way we're eating meat. Indigenous people, what they don't teach us in history, like a lot of thriving early civilizations were vegetarian, Egyptian, and I didn't know that until I was an adult. They didn't teach us that. All those philosophers, all those, cultured people, they were vegetarian societies, but they were also indigenous people who ate meat. However, they didn't eat meat like we eat it today. They ate meat not for pleasure not for gluttonous reasons. They eat meat for survival. They eat meat because of scarcity of other foods. They eat meat as a means of just living, survival. Native Americans, there's some of Native American tribes who eat buffalo, and they used every part of the buffalo, the bones, the skin. They used everything, and they were thankful. They had gratitude, and it was spiritual in nature, the way they did it. And nowadays, you have people eating candied meat, deep frying chicken and barbecue sauce, ribs, and it's this gluttonous, demonic, low-frequency culture of meat loving. And that's not how it was. When people used to eat meat, it was more respectful to the animals, and it wasn't an overconsumption of meat. And they hunted the meat themselves. It was clean, the meat, and it was done, based on your environment. And there was an abundance of nature provided whatever was needed, and there wasn't an overconsumption. Nowadays, we drive our fat selves to, the Mickey D's. We sit our fat selves on the couch and order Uber Eats, and we eat pork for breakfast, chicken for lunch, and steak for dinner. This is unnatural. And there's no one that's going to sit here and argue that is right, that is natural. When you understand the human body, we don't have the incisors for meat eating. We are not carnivores. We are omnivores. And people will lie and lie and lie in their lower nature to fight what I'm saying right now. But we are not. We don't have the incisors for ripping and tearing meat. We don't produce the hydrochloric acid like other carnivores to break down the meat should we consume the meat. When we consume the meat, it stays in our system for months and months and months, decomposing. That's why it's making people sick. We're not meat eaters. When we did eat meat, it wasn't the way we were eating now. We ate it, every now and then, and we hunted the food. Now we're stuffing our face with meat, and it's unnatural, this environment, this culture. So once again, someone telling you to eat more meat is not coming from God. It's not coming from source, that message. It's coming from the lower nature, because it is not good to eat meat the way we are eating meat right now. It is just an overconsumption meat culture that cannot be sustained when you understand what it's doing to the environment, methane gas, when you understand what it's doing to the farming industry. To feed the beast, we are the beast. The animals are treated horribly to maintain this absurd amount of meat consumption. And it's a cycle of sickness and death. It's a cycle of sickness and death that people are participants. And, there's karma, when you're a high vibrational spiritual being, you have sentient choice, and you can choose a path of less harm, or you can choose what you want. We're not carnivores. There's a lie. There's a lot of people lying and saying we need meat. No, you do not. No, you do not. And I woke up from the lies and the programs of religion, of everything. And it all fell by my feet, the programs and the lies. And I woke up from the program and realized that, I have sentient choice. Like, I will eat meat, make no mistake, if I need to. And if I have a family and I need to kill that animal, and that's what I'm going to do. But here right now, I don't have to eat meat. I know I don't have to eat meat, and I don't have to participate in the suffering and killing of animals and eating the trauma that they're going to give me, that I'm going to ingest should I eat the animals. I have the choice to participate or not, and I choose not to participate. And it's really as simple as that. I'm not trying to make anyone uncomfortable. I'm just sharing the truth. Let's talk a little bit about it. This is why I know I was just talking with someone why I was, I'm not producing a lot of stuff. And first of all, I had a year, like a few years, like no other. It was insane. And I'm preparing to come back in like October. But I'm thinking maybe having a subscriber-based channel, because the truth, people don't want the truth. People don't want the truth. A lot of your most popular people They're not popular because they tell the truth, because they don't. They tell some of the truth. Like 70, 80% of the time they tell the truth, but 30% of what they do is lies and agendas. And most popular people serve the beast, and they serve the matrix, because people don't hunger for the truth. What people really want is their ideology regurgitated and articulated back to them. That's what people want. People who really are in search of the truth are ready to, like, I've already been broken. You can't break me. I have no ego to break. You know, I don't care about protecting an identity and ideology. I have no labels, conservative, liberal, none of that. I am outside of that, and you can't break me. I want the truth. And very few people do. That's why nothing can disturb me. I'm not afraid of the truth. When you want to eat meat, you don't want to put your hamburger, your bloody hamburger down. Yeah, you might not like what I have to say, but I'm just explaining to people how I came to my truth. You do what you want to do. I'm not condemning eating meat. I'm condemning the promotion of meat diets. That's insane. It's a part of the insanity. And it's coming off like, I was speaking to someone today, right before I made this video. It's kind of like a response, you know, when like people were saying Black Lives Matter, and then people just decided to say, well, all lives matter. You know, so these keto diets and, you know, these meat diets, this person made a good point. That's what it feels like, the response to the plant-based explosion. Well, we're going to do a carnivore diet, you know, and make it popular. Before I get to the history of these meat diets and where they came from and why they're popular, I'm going to talk about the truth, why nobody likes the truth, and why even me saying this right now, I hope that it doesn't come off condescending, like, oh, I have the truth and you don't, because that's not my heart. That's not my intention. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just trying to make sure that I give people the truth. Every time I make a video, and, you know, sometimes maybe I'll knock it out of the park. Maybe sometimes I don't, but I always want that to be my goal. And when it comes to the truth, I know that there's no audience for the truth. As I was talking to someone on a platform just the other day, I don't really think being popular is my goal. It's not what I want.
And probably shouldn't be the expectation.
To make that point, this is the Kabbalion, and it's a very renowned occult book, which is basically a dumbing down and rehashing of ancient Hermetic principles, which, of course, is not from Greece originally. The original knowledge is not from Greece or Burmese. It's from ancient Kemet and Thoth. But it has some good sections in there, especially when it talks about some of the first teachers of the knowledge. These men have never sought popular approval, nor numbers of followers. They are indifferent to these things, for they know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the truth, or who would recognize it if it were presented to them. We're still here today. People reject the truth. They hate the truth. And, you know, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to the diet, when it comes to a lot of different subjects, but people have their ego and the things that they want in front of the truth. And I'm not telling anybody, this is not a vegan channel, and I'm not coming to you as a vegan, even though I'm not vegan. I just don't eat animals. You know, I eat honey and things. I'm not vegan. I'm plant-based. Yeah, when you I don't talk about the diet to a lot of people, but when I feel that someone is spiritually high vibrational person, high intellect, and they're open to the conversation, sometimes I was wrong because they just come in their lower frequency and defend and shoot, and oh yeah, they bring up the vegan friend, and now I have heard of this vegan, like they're mired in cognitive bias. In cognitive bias, the mind, all is mind, and what people do is when they're in a lower frequency, they filter out information that disproves or makes them uncomfortable, gives them cognitive dissonance. They filter out everything that disturbs their ideology, and they just bring in anything that supports it. So they cocoon themselves. They live in a bubble of meat eating, that's what they want. And I can't communicate with that. I know right off the bat when I make that exchange with someone, like, okay, you're still, I can't have a conversation up here because, vibrationally, and it's not judgmental, even though it kind of is. But you get what I mean. I respect where people are in their journey, and it's sometimes where people let me know right off the bat, you're not ready for this conversation or to have this exchange because you're mired in lower frequency thinking, and it's not up here. When you have no ego and you have nothing to fear, you don't fear the truth, you can have a high level conversation free of your ego. But it's rare. It's rare. So let's talk about the history of these meat diets. Where did they all come from? And to understand why there's all these meat diets now, keto, paleo. Let's talk about the grandfather of these meat diets, and that would be the Atkins diet. Although the Atkins diet wasn't a meat centered diet per se, it did entail a lot of meat eating, and the focus was on proteins and fats and less carbs and sugars. Now, Dr. Robert Atkins himself died obese and from cardiac arrest. There was conspiracy with his death because they lied. They made up a reason that he fell. And Joe Rogan was actually talking about this.
Speaking of something I read today, something about the Atkins guy. This is an interesting story. The